I'll answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. It's a rare triple upload day on the channel. A lot of news coming in fast and furious. We now know that DC Comics and Marvel are following in the footsteps of Dynamite and Boom. They are not going to be releasing new digital comics for the most part this week. These changes have all come in within the last 24 hours. Of course, I just talked about the Diamond Comics distributor's cash flow problem in the previous video. If you haven't checked that out, make sure and go check that video out as well. Now it's time to talk about DC Comics and Marvel canceling their digital releases for this week. I'm going to read the two articles from Newsarama. Then Perch for Comics by Perch will join me to discuss what this means as far as the comic book industry, the overall ramifications, the lack of a digital strategy, all that kind of stuff. It's not going to be really in-depth because everything's breaking right now, and we want to get you all the latest information as fast as possible. Now I'll read Newsarama contributor George Marsden's DC Comics digital article. DC Comics monthly book releases solicited for April 1 have been rescheduled to release on April 29 on comiXology and its sister platform Kindle per the individual listings for the 8 scheduled titles. Titles solicited for April 1 that are now listed on comiXology and Kindle for April 29 are Strange Adventures number 2, Batman 92, Harley Quinn 72, Justice League 44, Justice League Odyssey 22, Lois Lane 10, Daphne Byrne number 4, and The Dreaming 20. Marvel Comics' planned April 1 digital releases remain listed for that date on comiXology, which also listed them as available in print on April 1, which would seemingly be inaccurate, outdated information, as Diamond announced a week prior that no print books would be delivered April 1st due to the distributor's suspension of operations in response to the coronavirus crisis. Marvel, however, has not publicly announced their intention in regards to digital publishing while Diamond operations are suspended. That is not true. I will cover that right after this. This past weekend, a spokesperson for DC announced the publisher's plans to release its monthly comic books digitally during Diamond's shutdown. DC's solicited April 8 releases have not been listed on comiXology. Newsarama asked DC for comment on the date changes. We will update our story with their response. Now I'll read the subsequent Newsarama article from editor Chris Arant concerning Marvel. As the well-hewn weekly release date of new comics, Wednesday, comes near, Marvel Comics is now confirmed to direct market comic book retailers and to readers through us that it will not be releasing any new comic books digitally on April 1. This follows Diamond Comic Distributors announcing a week prior that it would not be distributing any new print titles April 1 and beyond, which would include Marvel's print titles. In the statement today from Marvel Entertainment President Dan Buckley, the publisher has decided to withhold releasing new titles digitally this week, but makes a point to mention this is a fluid situation with details changing every day. Diamond hasn't announced when they'll resume release of print titles, and this decision today leaves Marvel open to reconsider digital first release or other print distribution options down the road. Over the weekend, a DC spokesperson said the publisher intended to continue digital release of new titles this week. On Monday, however, changes in the listings for those digital comics changed on the leading digital distributor, comiXology's website, signaled that the planned April 1 titles had been pushed back to April 29. So there you have it, folks. This will basically be the first Wednesday in a very long time where new comics are basically not available from DC and Marvel. This may feel like a huge announcement, but I think it's something that we kind of all expected. Marvel and DC were going to run into a logistical nightmare if they release comic books new in digital, but not physically for up to 6-8 weeks. We don't know how long this is going to last. And then they try to ship all those comics to retailers at the same time. It would have overwhelmed the system. It would have overwhelmed customers. Is this the right answer? I don't know. I don't have all the information. I'm not there at DC and Marvel, but this is the answer that both of them have come up with. And it sucks. It definitely sucks. I know a lot of people were probably looking for some normalcy tomorrow, something to kind of take their mind off of all the weird things, all the chaos going on in their lives right now, to go and read new comics digitally. Maybe they don't like digital, but they were going to do it that week just so they could have something maybe comfortable that they're used to every Wednesday, because every Wednesday new comics come, but not this Wednesday. Terrible news. Obviously not quite as bad as the news about Diamond Comics distributors not being able to pay their vendors that we just covered earlier in the day. But it feels like all the news coming out of the comic book industry right now is highly negative. It's bad news. Hopefully something good happens in the near future. But now it's time to talk to Perch and see what he thinks about all this as well. Okay, Perch, it's a rare triple upload on the channel today. We got a lot of news coming. Just a few days ago, DC basically said, we're going to continue releasing our new comics digitally. And Marvel's new comics were also on the comiXology schedule. It looked like they were going to continue releasing digitally. Yesterday, DC comes down and says, we're halting digital distribution, except for, I think, 3 children's titles, which are going to be priced very low. And now today, Marvel comes out and says, we're not going to be releasing new comics on digital either. There are going to be graphic novels and things like that, but they've been halted indefinitely. We don't know a new date. DC Comics have been halted for 4 weeks. Did you expect this? It sounded like DC had a strategy as far as digital in mind of releasing new comics.
No, I mean, I did expect this. I think that you had a bunch of the creators told to, stop working or at least pause while things get figured out. There was going to be a gap. So either if DC and Marvel and everyone had continued to ship digital, there'd be a point where they couldn't ship digital and print would have to catch up, or shops were suddenly going to get a massive amount of print titles all at the same day. Not sure how they would get them at this point, but there was going to be a gap. So this pause was inevitable. It was just a matter of who was going to blink first. I think that Marvel had at least some intention or hope that they would be able to be alone in the marketplace for a period of time. When DC made the announcement, there was at least somewhere that Marvel would go it alone for at least a week and use it to test the waters of their digital strength and how many customers would float over there. But the negative backlash to that was going to be immense. It was going to look really antagonistic to a lot of people in the comics community. It was going to send all the wrong messages and put a lot of bad will. So once DC made the announcement, it was inevitable that Marvel would as well. And here we are. So a delay of a month, which I think is a month where they're going to have to figure out what their digital strategy is, where their distribution is going to sit, and how they're going to make up for this gap between new comics being produced and how they're going to get them to the market.
So they were both heading for a logistical nightmare. Once, if they released new comics digitally for 6 weeks and then all of a sudden had them all available in print, it had to get them out to the shops. The shops were going to be overwhelmed. The distributor, if there is one at that point, we're going to be overwhelmed. And they were going to lose a ton of money. So it did not make sense to me that they could actually release everything in digital unless they never intended to release those comics physically as well.
That's right, and they couldn't do that. I mean, the reality is that they were not going to let some of their biggest comics and these biggest events just go without any notice. So, I think you're right. There was going to be a logistical nightmare no matter how they were going to do it. So what they've done is basically buy themselves 4 weeks to figure out what are we going to do? How are we going to push this forward? Obviously, it's going to affect a lot of plans. It's going to affect a lot of creators who are going to be told completely to halt for at least a month to 2 months. And as we've talked in other videos, the industry, many parts of it were living hand to mouth. And this is, these gaps will not be able to be weathered by some people. So it's an interesting time. I think we'll watch very closely in the month of April how these companies figure out their digital strategy, where they're going to ship comics to and how they're going to do that. And I think you'll see a lot of things. Interestingly enough, Marvel was about to announce that they were going to bring at least some portion of the merchandise in-house to the largest Disney corporation and parent. And that could very well be what they decide to do, start doing for comics as well.
That's another thing we've somewhat been expecting for the past few years. Now, with everything that's happening, it feels like Marvel's being very reactionary to the other publishers. It feels like an opportunity for DC or Image or maybe one of the smaller publishers to really make up ground if they're able to weather this storm and come up with better ideas, new innovative ideas before Marvel or maybe even DC, who it seems like they're at least planning right now. It's going to be very interesting.
It is. I think, like we talked about in your video, DC is clearly planning. I think you could critique them a bit for not being more forthcoming earlier, or at least not letting people know that they were having a plan. But DC seems like they're planning for the future. They're thinking things through, and they're trying to make good decisions based around what they're trying to do. And maybe that makes sense because their parent, at the end of the day, Time Warner and both AT&T build themselves as an entertainment company, telecommunications company. They're probably very well served to solve this particular problem. Marvel, on the other hand, as like Disney itself, tends to be reactionary. They don't tend to lead. They tend to let others try the ground out first and then make progress. And I think they're going to be slow in moving. And I do think that has the potential to hurt them. A lot of Marvel's efforts of trying to get new characters going and new things out into the market, that's going to really suffer with what's currently going on and their ability to get comics out. So I do think it creates a really good opening for people who have a solid business model, who can put comics out, have some stability, have some cash flow, and weather this storm. I think there's a good opportunity for some people to make some ground here.
It does suck for the customers. I've had multiple, viewers and friends of mine say, you know what, I was looking for a little bit of normalcy in all of this, crisis or the chaos that we're experiencing right now. And one of those pieces of normalcy was going to be, new comics, but on digital, which maybe they don't prefer. And now it's another piece of, everyday life or an expectation of, every Wednesday you get some new comics has been taken away. It just sucks for everybody.
It does. It's a slow bleed right now. We're suffering a little bit more every day in the comic industry, and we haven't, like a lot of things right now with the entire situation, we haven't hit bottom yet. And I think a lot of people need to understand what the bottom looks like so they can start to build up. And where comics are concerned, unfortunately, I think there's a couple other shoes that have to drop here, and I definitely worry about a lot of the smaller publishers. I think there's definitely trouble for them. Some will, like we said, some will survive, some will do well, others are going to hurt.
Hopefully there's good news around the corner. We're definitely expecting to hear something from Marvel as far as more of a long-term plan. Generally speaking, like we did from DC Comics, where they didn't, go into detail, but they said we are planning, and we've been expecting something from Marvel. I believe Image is going to have something coming out in the next few days as well. So the information is coming fast and furious, and we're all just trying to keep up.
That's right. We are. We'll survive it together.
All right, buddy. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully next time it's for happier news. It's every day, huh?
Let's get something happier. We desperately need it.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.